The Mediterranean sparkled azure blue that morning, deceptive in its beauty. I didn't know it would almost become my grave. My husband Thomas squeezed my hand as our rented boat cut through the waves, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Just a little further," he kept saying. When I felt his hands against my back, strong and sudden, I didn't understand. Not until I was falling. Not until I hit those jagged rocks, my leg torn open, screaming his name as he stood watching from the boat. Not until he turned away, engine roaring to life, leaving me bleeding and alone. Before we begin, creating these stories is my passion and heart's work. Your subscription means I can keep crafting these narratives that connect us. Thank you. I've always been good at noticing patterns. It's what made me successful as a software developer, seeing connections others miss, but sometimes we're blind to the patterns closest to us, the ones wrapped in love and trust. Thomas and I had been married 8 years. We met at a tech conference, me presenting security protocols, him charming everyone at his financial software booth. He pursued me with the same intensity he approached everything. I fell hard for his ambition, his certainty about our future. Things changed last year. His company started struggling, at least that's what he told me. Late nights, hushed phone calls, password changes on our accounts, a growing distance I couldn't bridge. Then suddenly, this Greek vacation, "We need this, Sarah," he insisted, though our savings had been dwindling for months. I remember standing in our bedroom, watching him pack my jewelry. "Bring it all," he said. "You deserve to feel beautiful again." I should have questioned this strange routing through 3 countries. Should have wondered about the travel insurance he purchased. "Just standard coverage," he said when I glanced at the amount. One night, on the hotel balcony in Athens, I caught him studying marine charts, whispering to someone on his phone. When he saw me watching, he ended the call abruptly, smiled too widely. "Planning a surprise," he said. It was a surprise, all right, just not the kind anyone hopes for. Our 3rd morning in Greece, Thomas woke me with breakfast and eager eyes. "I've arranged something special," he said, buttering toast with steady hands. "A private boat tour to a secret beach. No tourists, just us." The captain barely looked at me when we boarded, a thin, weathered man with calloused hands who spoke to Thomas in broken English. I noticed he kept checking his watch. As we pulled away from the busy marina, something cold settled in my stomach. The coastline grew distant, rocky outcroppings replacing sandy beaches. Thomas kept smiling, pointing out rock formations, his voice too loud, too cheerful. "How much further?" I asked after an hour. The shore was now a jagged line of stone cliffs and isolated coves, with no signs of human presence. "Almost there," Thomas said, checking his phone, then switching it to airplane mode. When I pulled out mine to take photos, his hand closed around my wrist. "Battery's getting low. Save it for the beach." His fingers left marks on my skin. "Where exactly are we going?" I finally demanded, watching the captain whisper something to Thomas. "Why are you being so difficult?" Thomas snapped, facade cracking. "Can't you just enjoy something I've planned for once?" I'd never heard that tone from him before. It stopped my breath. I fell silent, but activated my smartwatch's location sharing. A habit from late-night runs back home. Thomas didn't know I'd programmed it to sync my location every 15 minutes, even without phone connectivity. The boat slowed near a particularly steep section of coastline. No beach, just sharp rocks descending into deep water. The captain turned away, suddenly busy with something in the cabin. "Come see this," Thomas called, standing by the rail, pointing at something in the water. His voice was honey again, all earlier sharpness gone. I hesitated, then moved toward him. The water below was crystal clear, revealing nothing but depth. "I don't see anything," I said. When I felt his hands plant firmly against my back, I had only an instant to realize what was happening. The push was decisive, professional, no hesitation in his movement. I remember the sensation of falling, the sickening moment of suspension before impact. The rocks came up hard and fast. Pain exploded through my leg as skin tore against stone. My head struck something solid, vision blurring. Water closed over me, then receded as I clawed my way onto a narrow ledge. Blood streamed from my knee, turning the sea pink around me. "Thomas!" I screamed, more from shock than hope. "Thomas!" He stood at the boat rail, watching me, not panicked, not jumping in to save me, just observing. Like I was a laboratory specimen whose reaction he found mildly interesting. The boat's engine roared to life. As it began pulling away, Thomas lifted something over the side, my suitcase tumbling through the air before splashing into the water 20 feet from me. Understanding crashed through me like the waves against the rocks. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. Blood pounded in my ears as the boat shrank into the distance. I dragged myself higher on the rocks as water lapped at my feet, fighting waves of dizziness. My knee was a mess, deep gash exposing what looked like bone. I pressed my hand against it, trying to stop the bleeding. I had nothing. No phone, no water, no one who knew where I was, except my watch. I glanced down at my wrist, where my smartwatch still clung, its screen scratched but functioning. Thank God for waterproof technology. With shaking fingers, I activated the emergency feature. "Call emergency services," I commanded. The response made my heart sink. No cellular or Wi-Fi connection available. Of course, Thomas wouldn't have chosen this location randomly. No signal meant no rescue. But the watch was still tracking my location, still recording my heart rate. It was programmed to upload all data to my cloud account the moment it found connectivity. If I could record what happened, I fumbled with the watch, activating its video function to document my injuries. The landscape, the disappearing boat. "My name is Sarah Lawson," I spoke clearly into the tiny microphone. "My husband Thomas Lawson just attempted to murder me." Looking around, I realized another danger. The tide was visibly rising. The narrow ledge where I sat would be underwater within hours. I needed to move higher, but each shift of my injured leg sent blackness closing in around my vision. And even if I survived the immediate danger, how long before dehydration or exposure claimed me? The sun beat down as blood continued to seep between my fingers. What was Thomas telling people right now? Hours passed in a haze of pain and desperate calculation. I tore strips from my shirt to bind my knee, then forced myself up the rocky incline before the rising tide could trap me. Each movement was agony, each handhold a battle. As afternoon faded into evening, I huddled against the cliff face, shivering despite the lingering heat. My suitcase had washed up nearby. Thomas's parting gift, I supposed. Inside, I found clothes, toiletries, and my jewelry box, but nothing useful for survival. No phone, no medications, no food. He'd removed anything that might help me. Why had he left the suitcase at all? The answer came like ice water. Evidence. He wanted my belongings found with whatever remained of me after the sea and sun finished his work. Using my watch, I recorded another video as the light faded. If anyone finds this, Thomas has planned everything. This wasn't a kidnapping. There are no kidnappers. He brought me here specifically to die. I scrolled through my watch's limited functions and found photos we'd taken earlier in the trip, still stored in its memory. There was Thomas at dinner last night, smiling across candlelight. I zoomed in on his phone screen, visible at the edge of the frame. My blood went cold. There, partially visible, was a photo of me, but altered. In the image, I appeared to be standing next to a man in a mask, holding a gun. a staged kidnapping photo, already prepared on his device. "He's going to claim I was taken," I recorded, voice shaking. "He's planted evidence of a kidnapping." The full scope of his plan crystallized. Thomas would report me kidnapped by local extremists. He'd produce doctored photos, possibly demands for ransom. He'd play the devastated husband while collecting on the excessive life insurance policy he'd insisted we upgrade last month. "Just good financial planning," he'd said. No one would search these remote rocks. No one would question why my body was never recovered from kidnappers. The Mediterranean would erase all evidence of what really happened. Night fell completely. Stars appeared in breathtaking clarity, beautiful and indifferent to my suffering. I couldn't stop shivering. My injured leg had gone from screaming pain to frightening numbness. I drifted in and out of consciousness, startling awake each time with fresh panic. During one lucid moment, I recorded everything I could remember of the past months. The way Thomas had insisted I update my will before the trip. How he'd been researching Greece for months, focusing on remote areas. The life insurance policy with its new accidental death during travel clause. His recent password changes on our accounts. His insistence that I bring all my jewelry, valuable items that would now be in his possession, with my death explanation for why they disappeared from our home safe. As dawn broke, I spotted something I'd missed in the darkness. A faint light along the distant shoreline. Civilization wasn't as far as Thomas had calculated. I just had to survive long enough for someone to find me, or for my watch to connect to some passing signal. I recorded one more message. This one different from the others. Not evidence, but a promise. "Thomas, when you see this, and you will know that you made 2 mistakes. You underestimated how badly I want to live, and you forgot what I do for a living." As a security software developer, I built my career on anticipating how systems fail. Thomas had just missed the most basic principle: always have a backup. Mid-morning, I heard it. The distant purr of a boat motor. I tore off my white shirt, waving it desperately above my head. My throat was too parched to scream effectively, but I tried anyway, producing ragged crows that tore at my dry throat. The boat changed course, moving closer. I could make out 2 figures now. Fishermen, their vessel small but sturdy. Hope surged through me with such force that I nearly collapsed. As they approached, shouting in Greek, I kept my watch, recording. This moment of rescue was crucial evidence. Thomas would claim these men were the kidnappers if he could. I needed to document everything. The older fisherman's face registered shock as they drew alongside the rocks and saw my condition. They helped me into their boat, speaking rapidly in Greek while I tried to communicate through gestures. The younger man offered me water, which I gulped gratefully. They were taking me to their village, I gathered. Not a tourist destination, but somewhere with people, possibly medical help. As their boat pulled away from my rocky prison, I looked back at the place Thomas had chosen for my death. In the morning light, it seemed almost ordinary, just another beautiful, treacherous piece of the Greek coastline. I glanced at my watch. Still no connectivity, but it was recording, storing, waiting, like me. I knew what Thomas would be doing now, reporting my disappearance, showing authorities the fabricated kidnapping evidence, playing the role of distraught husband. He'd be convincing because part of him had always been performing. I realized I just hadn't recognized the performance until now. The village appeared on the horizon, a small cluster of whitewashed buildings. As we approached, my watch suddenly vibrated. A signal faint but present. Data uploading. Thomas's carefully constructed fiction was about to meet my truth. The fishing village of Agios Nikolaos consisted of perhaps 30 buildings clustered around a small harbor. No police station, no hospital, no tourist facilities. The fishermen helped me from their boat, supporting me as I hobbled onto the dock. A small crowd gathered, voices rising in concerned Greek. An elderly woman brought a chair, gesturing for me to sit. Someone pressed a cloth against my wounded knee, speaking soothingly in a language I couldn't understand. American? English? I asked, looking from face to face. A teenage boy stepped forward. I speak English. Little, he said, forming each word carefully. What happened to you? Where to even begin? My husband, I said, gesturing, pushing motions. He pushed me from boat, left me to die. The translation caused a ripple of shock through the crowd. The elderly woman crossed herself. We need police, I said. Phone? Call police? The boy spoke with the fisherman, then nodded. Kostas has phone. We call police from next town. While waiting, a woman who appeared to be the village's unofficial medical provider cleaned and bandaged my knee. The wound was deep, but had mostly stopped bleeding. Infection was now my biggest concern. Kostas returned, handing his phone to the boy. Police coming. 3 hours. Road is not 3 hours. I needed to know what Thomas was doing, what story he was telling. Can I use internet? I asked, pointing to the phone. The connection was painfully slow, but I managed to pull up news sites. Nothing at first. Then, on the third site, a headline stopped my breath. American woman kidnapped in Greece. Husband makes desperate plea. There was Thomas on the screen, eyes red-rimmed, voice breaking as he addressed the camera. To whoever has taken my wife Sarah, please, she's innocent in all this. I'll pay whatever you ask. Just let her come home safely. The report mentioned proof of life photos received by authorities, the same doctored images I'd glimpsed on his phone. This isn't true, I told the boy, my voice shaking. He tried to kill me. These are lies. The boy translated, but I could see doubt in some faces. The story on the screen, grieving husband, kidnapped wife, was more believable than my version of attempted murder. I needed my evidence. I checked my watch. The upload had completed when we reached the village. I logged into my cloud account on Kostas's phone, finding the videos and location data safely stored. But as I scrolled through news reports, my blood ran cold. Thomas had laid groundwork I hadn't anticipated. 3 weeks ago, he'd consulted a therapist about his concerns regarding my mental health. He'd told friends I'd been having paranoid episodes, delusions that he was trying to harm me. He'd created a preemptive defense against exactly what was happening now. If I accused him, it would look like proof of my supposed delusions. When the police finally arrived, 2 officers from a larger town, they treated me with professional courtesy but visible skepticism. They took my statement through the boy's imperfect translation, but I could tell they'd already heard Thomas's version. Your husband has reported you kidnapped, one officer said in halting English. He is coming to Greece tomorrow to help search. Thomas was coming here. The realization hit like another push off the boat. He tried to kill me, I insisted, showing them my watch videos. This is evidence. They exchanged glances. We will investigate, the older officer said, but his tone suggested he was humoring me. As they prepared to transport me to a hospital in a larger town, I overheard them speaking to each other in Greek. The boy nearby translated quietly. They think maybe you are confused. Hit your head when you fell. They say your husband is working with international police already. Thomas had anticipated everything. He'd crafted a narrative where I was either a kidnapping victim or mentally unstable. Either way, no one would believe me. As the police car pulled away from the village, my watch vibrated again, an incoming message. My attorney back home had finally seen my uploads. Sarah, what the hell is going on? CNN is reporting you've been kidnapped. At least someone was listening now. The hospital in Kalamata was modern enough, with doctors who spoke English and took my injuries seriously. They cleaned my wound properly, administered antibiotics, and kept me overnight for observation. What they didn't do was believe me. A police officer stationed outside my door was ostensibly for my protection, but his presence felt more like surveillance. When I asked to contact the American embassy, there were delays and excuses. Through the hospital's Wi-Fi, I learned how completely Thomas had controlled the narrative. News outlets worldwide carried the story of Sarah Lawson, kidnapped while on a romantic second honeymoon. Thomas had given emotional interviews, offering a substantial reward for information. He always said he wanted to take her to Greece, his business partner Alexandra told reporters, dabbing at tears. They were trying to reconnect after a difficult year. Alexandra, the name triggered a memory, whispered phone conversations, where I'd heard Thomas mention Alex. Not a man's name as I'd assumed, but Alexandra. I logged into our joint bank accounts, finding them nearly empty. Large transfers had been made to offshore accounts just hours after my kidnapping. Thomas was liquidating our assets while playing grieving husband. When I tried calling my attorney again, the call disconnected repeatedly. I emailed instead, sending links to my cloud evidence. His response was troubling. Sarah, authorities question me about your mental state. Thomas provided records suggesting you've been having paranoid episodes for months. They're suggesting these videos might be self-inflicted injuries during a breakdown. Be careful, he's building a strong counter-narrative. A nurse entered with my evening medication, pills I didn't recognize. What is this? I asked. For anxiety, she replied. Prescribed by doctor. I palmed the medication, pretending to swallow it. Thomas's influence was reaching even here. That night, a different officer brought news that chilled me. Thomas had landed in Athens and was giving a press conference before traveling to Kalamata tomorrow. He is very worried for you, the officer said, watching my reaction. He tried to kill me, I repeated, voice flat from exhaustion. The officer's expression revealed nothing. Many cameras will be here tomorrow. International press. After he left, I found my suitcase had been delivered to my room, the one Thomas had thrown overboard. Opening it, I discovered small pills hidden in my toiletry bag, identical to the anxiety medication the nurse had tried to give me. Evidence that Thomas had been drugging me during our trip, probably to make me seem confused and unstable to others, to make the eventual kidnapping story more believable. I photographed the pills with my watch, adding to my evidence file. Tomorrow Thomas would arrive, expecting to find me either discredited or sedated. He thought he controlled all the pieces on the board. He was wrong. Morning brought a flurry of activity. News vans gathered outside the hospital. Police officers conferred in hallways. Medical staff checked my vitals with newfound attentiveness. I refused all medication, ignoring the doctor's protests. I needed complete clarity for what was coming. Officer Demetrio, the younger officer who'd been stationed outside my door overnight, brought me coffee and a quiet confession. I watched your videos, he said, keeping his voice low. The location data from your watch matches where the fisherman found you, not where your husband claims the kidnapping occurred. Finally, someone was seeing the inconsistencies. I seized the opportunity. My husband is working with someone named Alexandra, I told him. His business partner. They've been moving money offshore. This isn't just about killing me, it's financial fraud. Demetrio nodded slowly. I have friend in financial crimes unit. I made call this morning. A small victory, but significant. I wasn't alone anymore. My attorney texted, FBI now involved due to international fraud allegations. They're reviewing your evidence. Don't sign anything. Thomas brings you. Thomas would arrive expecting to find me isolated and discredited. Instead, I was building a network. Officer Demetrio, my attorney, the fisherman who'd found me, small connections that Thomas couldn't control. I spent the morning reviewing hospital security with Demetrio, camera locations, exit routes, staff schedules. If Thomas tried anything, we'd be prepared. He's manipulative, I warned. He'll appear devastated, loving. He'll make me sound unstable. I understand manipulative men, Demetrio replied grimly. My sister was married to one. By noon, news helicopters circled overhead. Thomas had left Athens, driving toward Kalamata with a police escort. The media portrayed it as a husband racing to his rescued wife's side. Only we knew he was racing to silence me. I checked my watch fully charged, recording everything. I positioned myself in the hospital room where light streamed through windows illuminating my injured leg, the bruises on my back from the fall. Physical evidence that would be visible to every camera present. When my phone rang, a temporary one provided by Demetrio, I answered to hear my attorney's urgent voice. Sarah, we found something. Alexandra Wilson emptied Thomas's personal accounts yesterday. She's disappeared. Thomas was being double-crossed by his partner. As if on cue, commotion erupted in the hallway. Cameras flashed, voices rose. He was here. I straightened in the hospital bed, hands steady for the first time in days. Let him come. The door swung open. Thomas filled the frame, dressed in expensive linen that somehow looked appropriately rumpled for a distraught husband. For one unguarded second, naked shock crossed his face at seeing me alert and composed. He'd expected drugs and restraints, not clear eyes and resolve. Then his mask slammed back into place. Sarah, he rushed forward, arms outstretched, voice breaking. Oh my God, you're alive. Cameras crowded the doorway, capturing his performance. I remained still as his arms encircled me, his cologne, the expensive one he saved for important meetings, filling my nostrils. What happened to you? He whispered, for my ears only. They said you were raving about me, trying to hurt you. I met his eyes directly. I remember everything, Thomas. Something dangerous flashed across his features before the mask reasserted itself. He turned to the assembled press, one arm still around my shoulders. I felt his fingers digging in, a warning pressure. My wife has been through a terrible ordeal, he announced. She's confused, suffering from exposure and trauma. The doctors believe she may have hit her head when she fell from the kidnapper's boat. Officer Demetrio stepped forward. Mr. Lawson, perhaps we could speak privately about the investigation. Of course, Thomas's public voice was cooperative, concerned. Anything to find who did this to Sarah? As some of the media were ushered out, I activated my watch's recording function again. Thomas leaned close, his smile unchanged but his whisper venomous. No one will believe you. I've made sure of that. Tell me about Alexandra, I said quietly. His hand on my shoulder spasmed. What? Your partner. The one who's disappeared with all your money. The color drained from his face. Before he could respond, the door opened again, admitting two men in suits who introduced themselves as Interpol agents. Mr. Lawson, we'd like to ask you some questions about recent financial transactions from your accounts. Thomas's recovery was impressive. Of course, but my wife needs rest right now. Perhaps we could. They know everything, I interrupted. The doctored kidnapping photos on your phone, the life insurance policy, the offshore accounts, the pills you were giving me to make me seem unstable. His expression hardened. My wife is clearly still confused. Her kidnappers drugged her. There were no kidnappers, Officer Demetrio said. We've confirmed through Mrs. Lawson's smartwatch data that she was at the location where fishermen found her for over 18 hours. The same location she was recorded at when she was still on your rented boat. One of the Interpol agents added, we've also found substantial evidence of financial fraud connected to your investment firm. Your business partner, Alexandra Wilson, crossed the Turkish border yesterday with over $2 million in assets. Thomas's perfect facade finally shattered. He lunged toward the door, but officers were waiting. As they restrained him, he turned to me, hatred replacing all pretense of love. You think you're so clever? He snarled. You have no idea what I've been through. The business was failing. Alexandra understood what needed to be done. "You tried to murder me for insurance money," I said, voice steady despite my pounding heart. "It wasn't personal," he spat. "We needed the capital. It was a business decision." The room fell silent at this confession. Even the Interpol agents seemed stunned by the coldness of it. "A business decision," I repeated. "Our 8-year marriage reduced to a financial transaction." As they led him away, Thomas made one last desperate attempt. "Alexandra forced me into it," he called back. "She threatened me. 'Sarah, you know me. I would never hurt you. Help me and I'll split everything with you when this is cleared up.'" But Alexandra had outplayed him too. An agent showed me banking records they'd uncovered. Thomas had been planning this for over a year, long before their business troubles began. The life insurance policy, the offshore accounts, all of it predated any involvement with Alexandra. The last thing Thomas saw before they took him away was me turning my back on him, alive, clear-headed and free of his manipulations. Later, alone with Officer Demetrio and my attorney on a video call, I learned the full scope. Thomas and Alexandra had embezzled millions from clients. My death would have provided liquid capital plus insurance money to disappear with, but Alexandra had decided Thomas was a liability and abandoned their plan, taking everything. "She left him with nothing but the insurance policy on you," my attorney explained, "a policy that's worthless while you're very much alive." For the first time since washing up on those rocks, I smiled. Genuinely, deeply. Thomas had lost everything, including the one thing he never valued, me. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the Boston skyline shimmer in the distance. My knee had healed, leaving an impressive scar, a reminder I chose not to hide. Thomas awaited trial on multiple charges: attempted murder, fraud, money laundering. Alexandra had been apprehended in Singapore, the money mostly recovered. They would spend decades paying for what they'd done. I testified at the preliminary hearings, looking Thomas in the eye as I detailed how he'd pushed me onto those rocks and sailed away, how he'd prepared for weeks to erase me, how close he'd come to succeeding. He never once apologized. Some people are incapable of seeing others as anything but tools for their ambitions. The life insurance company had ironically become my unexpected ally, launching their own fraud investigation that uncovered even more evidence against Thomas. They'd settled with me out of court, a sum that, while not matching the policy amount, gave me freedom to restart my life. I'd founded a small tech company developing tracking and safety software for travelers. My first product was based on an enhanced version of what had saved my life, a wearable device that transmitted location and emergency data through multiple redundant systems. Sometimes at night, I still woke feeling the phantom sensation of falling, of impact against unforgiving stone. But those moments grew less frequent with time. Once, I thought I glimpsed Alexandra watching my building, a flash of familiar features in a passing car. Perhaps it was imagination. Perhaps not. I'd upgraded my security systems either way. Some call me paranoid now. I call it prepared. My final message had exposed Thomas's plan, but it had revealed something else too. My own strength, hidden beneath years of trusting the wrong person. That was worth everything I'd endured to discover it. That's the end of Sarah's story. Would you have noticed the warning signs earlier than she did? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want more tales of resilience and justice. Click to discover our next thrilling story.